glutamine, I thought of glutes. So like doing a really mean squat to work on your mean glutes, glutamine.
All right. Do we have some more examples
You
for
want to take the next
Yeah,
one?
let's take a look.
yeah.
Why don't we do this one so we can show that it
Yeah.
doesn't,
Okay,
it's
that's a good
anything
one.
you
That's a
want.
good one. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is like a biochemistry example.
Biochemistry is like really great for memory techniques, I think.
Yeah, because it's very, most of the things don't really
can't
make
see
sense,
it.
right? It's just like stuff you got to know. And so the example we're going to do is basically the necessary elements, or specifically amino acids, that you need to make purines. So purine is a type of nucleic acid, like in DNA, and you need certain amino acids to be part of those that.
So like the ingredients,
Anabolism, right? Yeah, the ingredients, exactly. So there's a list basically of important ones that you need, and as far as we can tell, right, there's no like intuitive way to understand why these specific ones are there. It's just a list that you got to know, and they'll ask you about it. So this is ripe for memory techniques, right?
Yeah.
So why don't you take the first set?
Yeah, so there's 4: aspartate, glycine, glutamine, and THF, which is tetrahydrofolate. And so when I saw these, like you guys have been saying, like I kind of just want to think of the first thing I think of, the thing that I feel like it is, it reminds me of. So aspartate reminded me of asphalt, kind of has a lot of the same letters. So what I did was honestly, I just used an imaginary house. I was kind of walking down this street in our hometown, and I know there's a townhouse. I've obviously never been in this stranger's house, but that's like another thing is, I wasn't running out of palaces, but I could just create a palace in my mind. It doesn't have to be a place I've really been. And so what I did was I went through this house, this fake house that I created in my mind, and I put asphalt in for aspartate. And for glycine, I thought of ice, glycine, icine. Glutamine, I thought of glutes. So like doing a really mean squat to work on your mean glutes, glutamine, and tetrahydrofolate. So that's kind of, we get a lot of folates in biochem when we were memorizing them. And so I've always thought of folate as a foal, like, a baby horse. And so for tetrahydrofolate, like we kind of modify the messy. I just thought of like 4 horses attached to a carriage.
Right.
Tetrahydrofolate. So these are just the ones that like, immediately pop to my mind. Or in the case of tetrahydrofolate, I was kind of modifying a category, a pre-existing category.
Yeah.
I see. Now, would you picture all of that like in that imaginary house, like all on one spot, like all linking together?
Yeah. So the way I did it, I like to space my stuff out a little bit more, and so because this is an imaginary house, I could pretty much create it exactly the way I wanted to. So I just imagined this was a townhouse. So on the front door, I imagined a bunch of asphalt, just kind of like covering the door so I couldn't get in, and then the front living room is just full of large ice blocks. And then in the bathroom, because this is my fake house that I'm making, right? In the bathroom, it's just someone doing squat glutes, glutamine squats for a mean glute. And then in the kitchen in the back, I just imagine this huge carriage with 4 horses in them. And so, because it was my fake house.
So essentially like one image per locus.
One image per locus, but it was my fake house, right? And then it kind of feels like very connected and melded together.
Yeah, and just to take that on, we thought it could be interesting, to show my images versus Cathy's images and show kind of how they were different. Hopefully that could be helpful to people. So for these same 4, I think all of my images are different for all of them. And so just to start out, the palace that I was using at this time was this place just outside this old building on the Ole Miss campus that we both used to work in. Which happens to be a pharmacy building. And so there are these big long steps. And so I imagined basically a shuffleboard kind of little piece, gliding right down those steps. And then basically there's someone at the top using a glue, using like Elmer's glue to try to like get it to come back up, like to pull it up with this big stream of glue. So those represent, the shuffleboard and its gliding represents the glycine. And then the glue represents glutamine. So that these are obviously different images from Cathy's, and then those are 2 images that I put on that locus, and then I'll move kind of down those steps, and there's this parking lot nearby, and so for there I just imagine Bart Simpson hitting a T-ball. So there's Bart Simpson for aspartate, And then the T-ball kind of
Uh,
reminds me of THF. And I use, unlike Kathy, I use baseball bats for anything to do with folate. And so the T-ball kind of reminds me that it's TH folate, so tetrahydrofolate. So I've got those the glue and the gliding shuffleboard, and then aspartate Bart hitting the T-ball THF.
Got it. All right. So it's okay. You know, this is two great methods of viewing it. You can just space it out, put one image or one association per location, or you can combine them and create like a nice little story with two. Or do you ever put more than two? Like I'm pretty sure you can possibly like create this one story along that railing or the stairs where you have all four of them, right?
Hmm.
Just like linking back to each other. So I mean, it's okay to use both. At the end of the day, I think for people, it's like test it out, right? Test out what method works for you. If you're like if you're having a hard time with seeing, like, let's say you store four things in one spot in one locus, and you're like, man, I'm just having a hard time recalling, say, the third thing or the second thing, then space it out. Do what Kathy does. She spaces it out and puts one on each location. It doesn't have to all, we don't all have to use the same exact method. But at the end of the day, it's just all about using your creativity
Hmm.
to come up with these associations, and then the actual method on how to do it. Just play with it on your own and see what works best for you. Because I get a lot of people asking me, so what do you do specifically for this one thing? I'm like, well,
Right.
this is what I. So do I have to do it that way? I'm like, test it out. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, change it up. See what works for you, what works best for you.